Sanje Shindo Mede Puwai Jogu Nanda Yela Chebala Sho Edama Guru Rana Benda Laga Neya Daya.
I hope you all had a good rest. Oh, you all have the textbook, okay. I don't think we will have to go through the text. So beginning in the text, beginning with paying homage to the Buddha, and then to the to Nagarjuna and Asanga, right? And then the third verse paying homage to Dipamkara Adisha, and then to the teachers, right? Like that. So this is something like, I think, paying homage. It's really about, I think, recognizing the kindness of the teachers, right? Appreciating and, of course, acknowledging. In general, I think this is very important. Not only recognizing the kindness of the gurus who embody the Dharma, but also recognizing the kindness of sentient beings. So these two, I think, they are more or less the same. Yeah, remembering the kindness of the Buddhas and remembering the kindness of sentient beings. Sentient beings are equal to the Buddhas. They are equally kind, because just as through the Buddhas we achieve enlightenment, likewise through sentient beings, then we achieve enlightenment, right? So they are same in that regard. And therefore, I think paying homage, this part is very important, to acknowledging and really recognizing the Guru and recognizing sentient beings. With this, then we start, and also something like we say by paying homage, by seeing and recognizing the kindness of others in a way, then this brings us to humility. Humility, is that right? Humility. So this is what humility is really about. It is about recognizing the kindness of others, right? Humility is not by saying, oh, I am nobody, I'm nobody. It is not like that. That, I think, is low self-esteem, low self-esteem. So humility, and then what is the verb? Humble, thank you. So being humble is not about putting oneself down, This is, I think, important. Being humble, it's really about recognizing the kindness of others, acknowledging the kindness of others. Okay. And then in the verse, first verse, talking about the physical, the verbal, and then the mental qualities of the enlightened beings, right? And with the first line, where it mentions that for each of those physical attributes, then something like countless, right? Countless merits were accumulated. Each of those attributes, physical attributes of the enlightened one, then they are the fruits. They are the results of countless merits, accumulation of merits. And then the second line talks about the verbal qualities, the speech of the enlightened one, enlightened speech and enlightened mind. Especially with the enlightened mind, even though we say enlightened mind, it is the omniscient mind, the all-knowing mind. Yeah. I think this is not only Buddhists who believe in omniscient mind that way, right? But I think many other religions, they all talk of the all-knowing one, right? This is very interesting. All-knowing one. Somehow we also, Buddhists also believe in the all-knowing one. Now, all-knowing one can be taken literally, or one other way, which I find helpful, is knowing the two truths, conventional reality and ultimate reality. So knowing these two realities, the perceptual and perceptual reality, and then what is the other one? Ultimate reality. Yeah, so conventional reality is perceptual reality. And then what is transcendental reality? Okay, yes. Anyhow, this ultimate nature we call, right? We label it ultimate nature. So knowing these two aspects, so all phenomena has these two aspects, right? They all have this aspect on the one hand of this conventional reality, and then the beyond conventional reality, right? What we call the ultimate reality. And to label it, we just use this word emptiness, right? And then we stop with that and don't ask any questions about what that means, right? So these two truths, the mind that realizes these two truths simultaneously, this is how omniscient mind is defined. And I think this is, I like this way of explaining, explaining the omniscient mind in relation to the two truths, the two realities. Because when we say about all knowing as knowing or like everything in this world, knowing all the single atoms and the molecules, then somehow, yes, it's very good, but then how is that relevant to us? How is that relevant in the aspect of showing us the path to enlightenment, right? So to bring that to more relevance than this explanation of knowing the two truths simultaneously. And simultaneously here, I mean non-dualist, non-dualistic. Is that a word? Non-dualistic, okay, non-dualistic, yes. So this is really how, at least I try to understand from the state of this dualism, right? That's all I can manage for now, So like this, omniscient mind, the mind that sees, realizes the two truths, conventional reality and emptiness, non-dualistically, this is omniscience. And then the great teacher, the Buddha, in his lifetime, of course, he shared what he experienced. The Buddha shared what he found out, right? He shared his discoveries, right? Something like this. And finding what he found, it was not easy. He had to first, I think, learn a lot, and also had teachers from other traditions, and then something like the 6 years of hardship, So all of this then they culminate in his realizing, in his enlightenment, right? So this enlightening process is not something only on the theory level. It's not, right? It is, of course, we have to begin with some kind of understanding, right? But then also it requires us to also apply those theories to practice, and also go through what we call the hardships. Hardships. This is, I think, a very important part of this enlightening process. without going to such depths or to such without taking such measures. And by the way, these hardships, I think one really has to step out of one's comfort zone, you know. And this is, I think, very important, to step out of the comfort zone and, yeah, to step out of this bubble, right? And face reality, and then overcome the difficult things. And by difficult things, that it should not be understood as something out there, but in ourselves, you know, the difficult things, the issues that we have. For example, laziness, you know. So going through these hardships is really a good way of challenging, of confronting our lazy attitude, you know. This is, I think, very helpful. And this kind of physical hardships, and then something like, I could say, the verbal hardships, right? It's a way of dealing with our mental but something like our mental blockages, you know, what hinders us from really freeing ourselves, yeah, from really freeing ourselves, I think. To free the mind, you know, to free the mind. And that is, I think, what emptiness, the role of emptiness is, you know. It is to really free ourselves from all these bondages that we create in our minds. And sometimes we create them from this level of conceptualization, and then later we even cement, we even enforce them, strengthen them with more reasonings, and we try to rationalize our, what we call, mind poisons, right? Many times I think we do that, right? And then this is the purpose of emptiness, right? Of bringing emptiness into our lives, is to really free ourselves from all of these mind poisons. Now, where was I getting at? How did this happen? Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, to say, because of perceptual reality, therefore, I'm going to turn a blind eye to emptiness, is not good. And then also, on the other hand, to say, because of emptiness, I'm going to turn a blind eye onto conventional existence, is also not the way, right? So then, to bring these two aspects together, and then first on a conceptual level, trying to come up with reasonings, yeah, to make it sensible for us, right? How can we, through logic, let's just call that logic or reasoning, because that's, I think, what we use logic for, right? We use logic to try to make sense of it all, right? So by way of using some reasonings, then first to bring conventional reality and ultimate reality together, at least on a theoretical level. Yeah. So this is, I think, very important in the early stages. Yeah. And then gradually, again, still, is that perfect? Is that really the answer to everything? Of course not. So we have to use that as the basis, because that's all we got right now, right? So we have to then improve on that. You know, we have to build on that, right? We have to build on our understanding of these two aspects of reality, and then build on that. And then gradually through this building process, then we can bring these two together. And one other way of expressing that is that we can then do away with separating these two aspects, right? We can do away with separating these two aspects. Separating, by that I don't mean to make statements like that or think or to have some philosophical views about how these two are separate. I don't, of course that is also included, but also I'm trying to express how we simply only acknowledge just one aspect and then sort of ignore the other, right? So that I think I would like to include in this separation as well. And by this process, then we can, these two aspects become one, you know, to our viewpoint. From our viewpoint, then there will come a time when we can no longer see this separation, right? And this is an emptiness is, we use emptiness, right? When we use emptiness, of course, it's only on a conceptual level, but to really see for what it is, that can, I think, only happen at the very last state, right? At the final stage. One way of explaining, and this is in the non-tantric systems, we use this word something like to extinguish the mind poisons or overcome the mind poisons, right? I think we use those terms. in Tantra, and then specifically in highest yoga Tantra, then we don't use, these terms are not so frequently used, and instead we say purify the mind poisons, to purify the mind poisons. And because I think most of you are already, have been practicing highest yoga Tantra for a very long time, then I think this way of explaining, this approach, it's really good, how we don't make such a big distinction between the mind poisons and the omniscient mind, right? How we don't make such a big distinction between the 5 afflictions and the 5 jhanas, right? But simply by purifying the 5 afflictions with emptiness and method, and bringing method and emptiness together, then the true form of the 5 afflictions are realized, in the form of the 5 jhanas. So this way of explanation, I think, somehow it gives like more hope, more hope. Somehow, of course, in highest yoga Tantra, we say enlightenment is possible within a lifetime, and if you get something like the first class ticket, then maybe in 3 years, something like that, right? Of course, with this explanation of how there's not such a big distance between the afflictions and the jhanas, then it really seems possible, it really seems possible, right? But here again, the method is combining compassion with emptiness, right? And in a very specific way, there's a very specific way that we bring these two together, right? And of course, as you all know, this is simply not about just meditating on compassion or emptiness alone, but then to really get the mind down to its most basic form. And in order to do that, then one has to, meditate on the wind channels, right, and the chakras and so forth. So those yogas, therefore, are naturally very important in getting the mind to its most barest form, to get the mind in its most basic form, without all the complications, without all these add-ons. Add-ons? Yes. It's like when you go to burger, just ordering burger and not putting on all these add-ons and add-ons and add-ons, and putting all these add-ons just takes away the taste of the burger. So something like that, like that's what's happening with us, is that we have so many add-ons right now, and especially with, I think, social media and the likes, we can have even more add-ons, right? And with all these add-ons, then we are really losing the taste of our innate mind. Yeah, we are just losing the taste of the innate mind. And it never manifests. It never manifests when we have all these add-ons added, right? But when you take away those add-ons, then the real mind, it manifests. Generally, with this Lamrim, of course, it's not highest yoga tantra per se, but here now, I think because of you all, then I feel somehow at liberty, to like bend the rules and maybe not follow the rules strictly. Yeah, this is what I meant earlier when I said you make my work easy, because I can sit on this thing and then talk and say anything that comes into my mind, that comes from the top of my head. I can say anything, and I know that that when you receive it, you will receive it in the best way. That you will receive it in the correct way. What's that game? Is it like Scrabble? No. Or is it Hangman? Or what's that game like where you have all these words jumbled? Scrabble. Okay, so I'm really playing Scrabble, and then I know you will. I know that you will figure it all out. Yes. So this is like Scrabble. Yeah. Then this other thing, just because they are different doesn't mean they contradict each other. Yeah, this is, I think, an important point. Just because they are different doesn't mean they contradict each other. When we talk of nirvana, even in the Buddha's teachings, primarily for like the Shravakas, and then for the and then so forth for different disciples with different scopes, with different mental dispositions. Even though the Buddha would use the word nirvana, because of the mental disposition of the hearers, they would have different understandings of nirvana, right? But that doesn't mean their understandings contradict each other. Yeah, I think this is one thing we have to acknowledge as I think in the subsequent verse, there's that one verse talking about the 4 attributes of the Dharma, something like that, or maybe the 4 Chögyechöwa, and then beginning with first Tenpa Tamji Kemedu Tobechewa, right? La. Verse 8, I think, verse 8, yeah, that they are not contradicting each other. Buddha's intention of the Buddha, all of the teachings that the Buddha gave, they were given with the intention of the hearer realizing the truth. No, that is the point, right? That is the point. So all of the Buddha's, the Dharma teachings converges on this single point, right? They all converge on the same point. And therefore, they may be different in some forms or some aspects like that, but they all come to the same point, yeah? Therefore, they do not contradict each other. And this, we can apply it, for example, in our daily lives, when we have some kind of discussion with friends, with others, when we see things in different ways. You know, we are essentially seeing something like the same thing, but from different viewpoints. Many times, I think that is the case. Then if we can acknowledge this fact, you know, this point, if we can sort of remember that, then I think, at least from our perspective, everything will be okay, right? We will not become agitated, because now, why should I become agitated when what this person is saying does not contradict with my statement or with my viewpoint, right? So this helps, I think, in many of our daily life experiences, interactions like that. So just because they are different doesn't mean they contradict. And I was thinking, compassion and emptiness, right? With compassion, then there is something like one is really freeing oneself of all doubts. Yeah, many of our doubts, they come in relation to others, in our relation with other beings. You know, most of our doubts come from there. Sometimes we may have doubts in our abilities, but this is a very small percentage. Most of our doubts, they arise as a result of our interaction with others, right? The majority of our doubts. So with compassion, then there is no place for this kind of doubts from arising, because now we trust the other completely, yeah? We trust them completely. And this completely trusting others in this way is only possible with true compassion, with unconditional compassion, right? Unconditional. So therefore, then, as we become more, as our compassion increases, then I think it is very clear that this emptiness will become clearer. Yeah? Because now our mind is becoming empty of doubts, of anger, of frustrations, of all the things that disturbs us, right? And this in itself is a is emptiness, right? It's an emptying process. And to really bring compassion to its higher state, not only is it sufficient for this level or this stage of compassion, this grade of compassion, where it is able to free the mind, our minds, of these doubts and frustrations, aversions, like that, but it should also be able to clear our minds of attachment, right, as well. Because if we are not able to free ourselves from attachment, then it's only a matter of time before we feel aversion, right? We feel frustration, we feel doubts. So as compassion becomes stronger, then we are able to also overcome both these two aspects, right? Both these two, something on the attachment, self-cherishing side, and then on the aversion, frustration side, right? With others, like that. And then gradually, then where does this attachment and self-cherishing come from? It comes from the dualistic views, from conceptual thoughts, you know, from this conceptualizing I and other, right? It comes from that. So this conceptualization is something like confusion, yeah? Even though there is no separation of I and other, it is conceptualizing that separation, right? It is distancing I from others, creating this boundary, yeah? Or restricting oneself. My ignorance restricts me. My ignorance restricts me with this conceptualization of me, right? As soon as I start doing that, then I'm now bound by this separation. So compassion, as it grows, then this separation, I and others, this will decrease, and then I will be freed of this separation. So compassion and emptiness, if I think like this, then we cannot separate. I cannot separate compassion and emptiness, because now from their functions, they both come to the same point, right? They are like, in a way, supporting each other, but they are both working together in overcoming this dualism, right? In overcoming this separation. In freeing myself from creating all these unnecessary boundaries, right? Separations. So compassion has this property. It has this aspect of freeing the person, of freeing the mind from all these unnecessary conceptualizations, unnecessary concepts. Thinking about compassion in this way and thinking about emptiness this way, then it's like one is the conventional aspect and then the other is the ultimate aspect, right? But they are now inseparable, right? And they converge to the same point. This is, I think, very important, to always remind us of this point, to not lose sight of our goal. I think this is really key to our practice. No matter what form they may be, in no matter what form you practice, what you practice, it all comes down to that point of overcoming and of freeing ourselves of all these unnecessary things that happen, that we create, that we create with our concepts, right? That we create with our dualistic thoughts, dualistic intentions. Dualistic intentions. As long as we have these dualistic concepts, then our intentions will always be dualistic too, right? Dualistic in the sense that something like we will have something what we are trying to show, and then we also have what we are trying to hide. Dualistic intention in that way. So with true compassion, unbounded compassion, then there is no more of this dualistic intentions, right? Because now everything is pure, yeah? It's simply approaching from true nature. It is now arising from true nature, unaided by confusion, not connected with delusions, not connected with mind poisons, right? So this is more or less, I think, what highest yoga tantra, in this system, it is explained like this. So this is something like a very general, thing. As long as we know the goal, then I think that's good, as long as we are clear on our goal, that is clear. Bodhicitta, the awakening mind, it's really about committing yourself, right? Committing yourself to benefit others, to benefit other sentient beings unconditionally, and being committed to do whatever you can, to do whatever you can to benefit them, and to rely on any methods to benefit them. And the best method is to be in a place in which you can then benefit them fully. And this place is what we call enlightenment state, because in that state, now you have everything from your side to be of service to others. There is no more mental blocks anymore. You cannot become discouraged. You cannot become frustrated by the stubbornness of sentient beings. You are now in this place where you have really tested all of your limits and you have really overcome laziness and then freed yourself of all of these blocking factors that we create in our mind that are entirely they are entirely our creations, so to speak. So this is what we call bodhicitta, right? Or conventional bodhicitta, at least, right? Conventional bodhicitta. So this is why Buddhahood, I don't know, we can use many different labels, but Buddhahood we can use. And also these things like Buddha, Buddhist, Buddhism, these are very interesting terms, very interesting terms. When I think about it, somehow to say becoming fully enlightened is only possible if you follow Buddhism. Yeah. Now let's not talk about what is the definition of Buddhism, but even to say that, somehow I feel if we are not careful, this can be misleading, right? To say Buddhahood would only be possible if you follow the Buddhist path, if you are a Buddhist. Okay, but then what is a Buddhist, right? So these are some questions. If we think Buddhist in the sense of following Buddha Shakyamuni, then of course that statement can't be true. Right? So then if you don't follow Buddha Shakyamuni, then you cannot become a Buddha, right? Then how about Buddha Shakyamuni himself? He's a Buddha, but he never followed Buddha Shakyamuni, right? Right? So if you think like this, then one really has to think about what it means to be a Buddha, to be a Buddhism, to be a Buddhist, So we have to be careful. And also, religion and religious institutions, they are two separate things, right? Many times, I think when we say Buddhists, we always mix it with following a particular institution, right? You know what I mean, right? Of course. Some kind of organization, some kind of group, an umbrella group with many different categories. And it's almost like there's like a hierarchy, right? There's like a hierarchy. So we have to be clear, from the onset about Buddhism and Buddhist institutions, and there are many institutions in many different traditions, and all of these traditions, okay, it's really wonderful we have so many different traditions, because somehow in having this kind of traditions, in this kinds of institutionalized groups, we have somehow uphold the lineage, you know. This is wonderful. I'm not against that at all. But what I'm not so comfortable with is becoming so attached to the idea of these so-called traditions. You know, when we become overly attached to these labels, and then we define them in a very narrow way, then I think this can be counterproductive. Now, it does perhaps more harm to oneself than good, right? So it is important again to develop, I think, something like the expansive thought, you know, expansive mind, and a holistic approach, and really getting the bigger picture, I think is so very important, you know, and not restricting ourselves, right? Not restricting ourselves. And yeah, that's I think just like a little thing that I wanted to share. Oh, I thought, even though we have originally made schedule to go till I think 8:30, I thought maybe we can stop around 8. Yes, I think 1.5 hours is really enough. Yes. So at this point, yes, and then, of course, remembering the kindness of the Buddha. And then, yes, after the Buddha passed away, then there were, I think, seven something like lineage holders. But then there was many different changes, and it went through something like something like a dark period. Then I think even though the Dharma was there were people who practiced it, but it was in very small numbers or something like that. And then as Buddha himself prophesied, then Acharya Nagarjuna, and then later Asanga, in their times, then they really something like re-established, you know, re-established the Dharma, and really then there was like a very strong movement, you know. So it was like a something like revitalization, something like this, of the Dharma, and particularly of the Bodhisattva yana, starting with like the Paramita Sutras, Panchaparamita Sutras, and then so forth. So with Nagarjuna, then really elaborated on the is it the profound part? The profound part, and then Asanga with the vast path, right? With the vast path, and through their efforts, then many of these instructions were, what is the word? Not re-established, but what? I meant, the context was, first there was like that, and then it went down, and then they really, again, read something. Resurgent is flowering. Yes, we are getting many. I'm getting many help. Yes, yes. But still, one word escapes me. Oh, revived. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, this is the word I was looking for. Yes. So then, they really revived the tradition. So for this, then again to recognize their kindness. They have something like this. What is the word? Charioteers. Charioteers is used, right? In this translation, charioteers is no. Is it charioteers? Oh, chariot. Is that right?
Then the forehead.
Yes.
Great charioteers.
Charioteers, right? Or trailblazers. Charioteers, then this image of like the chariots come. And I think many of us, especially like my generation, also the younger generation, like chariot, like what's that, And then trailblazers, yes, I've come across that word before, but then for some reason, whenever that word comes up, trailblazer, I always think of Chevy. Chevy trailblazer. Yeah. And then I remember like in the 90s, they have this advertisement, I think like for the blazer, it was like blazer like a rock. Like a rock. So with these words, I don't know. Different images come to my mind. But with the Tibetan words, we say Shingda Chenpo Ni. Then there is no ambiguity there. No, it's like then you know exactly what it refers to, right? I mean, you know what I mean, right? But with like charioteers, then this person like who is like with this whip and beating the horse comes out, and all these funny images come up, right? But the Tibetan word Shingda Chenpo Ni, then none of these other images come. So it's very interesting that when we translate, then there's like something special about the language, Of course, I think you have already reached a place when you say two trailblazers, then immediately it's very clear. But I'm at almost like a baby level. So when I say two trailblazers, I'm thinking two Chevy trucks or two Chevy SUVs comes up, right? Anyhow, so Acharya Nagarjuna and Arya Asanga. And then Adisha Devangara Adisha, then plays this very important role of bringing these two streams, these two parts together. He brings these two. He brings these two together, and of course, the second wave in Tibet, right? During the second flourishing of the Dharma, then Devangara Adisha, without Devangara Adisha, then Buddhism would not have been revived, right? So for that, then salutations to Adisha, and obviously Adisha being Adisha's Bodhipratipa, being like the root text of the so-called Lam Rim genre, the Lam Rim teachings. After Adisha, during the Kadam times, even though I don't know if they use this word called like this Lamrim, but they use another word similar sounding, Tenrim. So Lamrim was not used, but Tenrim, and I think also Lebeshera and also Tolungpa, Lama Tolungpa, and then few others. Then they had this Tenrim, and so Tenrim is very. I think Lamrim is in a way also based on the Tenrim teachings as well, right? So the Tenrim collections were like also, they were in a way like commentaries to Adisha's Bodhipratipa, and then Geshé Rinpoche, I think, then bases the Tenrim in order to then explain Bodhipratipa like this. And also there's also an auto commentary, right? Auto commentary of Bodhipratipa. No. So it's I think auto commentary. So these great exalted beings, they made much contribution. They made much contribution in disseminating the Dharma and also upholding that lineage. And of course, upholding lineage doesn't mean they go to one master and listen to a few words and then go to another place and then repeats those same words. This is not the meaning of disseminating the Dharma, not at all, right? But to disseminate the Dharma is to really, I think, practice the Dharma, and just as they were inspired to practice the Dharma through their teachers, they also they were also source of inspirations for others, and through that inspiring, then they passed oral transmissions, the lineages, pith in instructions, and so forth, and most importantly, inspired others on the path, right? So through their kindness, then this is, I think, why we have these verses on paying homage. So it is not like, again, it is not something like protocol. It is not like protocol, but really there's much meaning. I think there's much meaning in this paying homage in Chöpa. Something like alluding, not alluding. So something like is alluding to the qualities of the great masters, correct? Alluding, okay. So these verses, they allude the qualities of the masters, or that doesn't sound right. Okay. Yeah, the thing is, it's very clear. They the qualities of these masters are, what would be the word? Chewa Jeba.
Let's see, one the expression of worship once. And then honoring the medal.
Oh, yes, honoring. Yes, honoring is a good word.
Celebrate.
Yes, honoring. Yes, it is to honor the teachers. Chewa Jebas. Keju Jebara. Jeba said Karsir.
To express.
Ah. Shanda, I think Shanda you're. Oh. No. How would you say? So if there's a verse that talks about the qualities of the guru, so then can you explain that? This verse now it expresses the qualities of describe. Describes the what?
Extol.
Oh, extorts. Oh, this I have to put in my dictionary. I have no idea. Did you say extort?
Extol.
Oh, so sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Extol. Oh, extol. Extol. And what is the meaning of this? Extols. Okay. Praise. Yes. Yes. Elucidates. Ah. So many words to express the one thing, huh? So many words. Ah. Ah. And is there like a negative connotation around praise? No. Praise, it's okay? Negative connotation around that? No. But in Tibetan, it's very clear. Chewa Jeba. Yeah. So, okay, we will go with Chewa Jeba. And now you all have to say Chewa Jeba. Yes, yes. And end of discussion. Yes. I have to apologize because all these words somehow, because of my limited knowledge of the language, I cannot feel that this is not like aha, the aha moment. Aha, it's not like this is it. This sounds right. That's not coming, you know. I think it's really due to my limited knowledge, my limitations with the language. But in Tibetan, Chewa Jeba is very direct, you know. Chewa Jeba, Chewa Jeba, Je said in this way. In one of the express the Karsore. No, yeah, because why because we have some time, can I just something like the background of all this confusion in my mind? Maybe I'm now justifying my confusion. The Tibetan word Chewa Jeba or Cheba Jeba, Je. If Je in English is expressing, for me, I'm not so comfortable with that because expressing sounds very general, and it could even be, I would like to express whatever, you know. Whereas Je in this context, if I say I would like to express like my good wishes, if I say that same sentence in Tibetan, this word je will never come. Yeah. So this is why I'm trying to get a word that is more. Oh yes, please. Extol. E-X-T-O-L. Extol. Okay, then extol is 2 L's. Oh, oh, 1 L. Okay. Oh, yes, yes. Oh, okay. Yes, yes, yes. Extols. Oh, yes. Yes. Extol. Now this is more clear. I think extol is a good word. So these two verses, these verses, then they extol on, right? No, it's a verb. They extol the qualities of the teachers. Now, right. So maybe at this point, maybe if you like to share some questions. Yes, yes, please.
Thank you, Rinpoche. I had a question regarding the two truths and I guess the nature of the Buddhas. I think there was a comment earlier that there's different mental continuums for each Buddha. Would it be fair to say that conventionally Buddhas are different, but ultimately are the same or one in essence? Like from an ultimate nature perspective?
But I think this you could say the same for like non-enlightened and enlightened beings, right? Non-enlightened and enlightened beings are conventionally different, but ultimately same. Yeah. So that's like then but that's not the point that I would like to convey, but like literally that all enlightened beings are of the same continuum. All enlightened beings are of the same continuum. Yes. That's all. No. 근데 나중에 제가 스탄스. 그래서 원하는 투지직을 계제요 말해. 그 냠바레스 원나 아니 저 탐진의 냠바레스는 아니 저기도 고봉 수익 means 소에 지어줘. 저는 지 캔도다 방도 있는 그 냠바레스. 있는 다초 샴바 강간 냠바레스는 아니 저기도 고봉 수익 means in this 소에 신서. Or just some internal discussion. It's like I would like to think that all enlightened beings are of the same continuum. That's what my intuition is telling me, but then logic says otherwise, right? that kind of thing. So should I go with my gut feeling or should I go with my brains? I don't know.
Thank you. How do you understand same continuum? And I would say that one of the first visit I had with His Holiness, we were asking him about attaining enlightenment and reincarnation. And he said that we continue on. And he said, take myself, for example. When I attain enlightenment, I'll be a really good person. He said, but I will still be there. So I'm wondering how we all have when people are enlightened, how they have the same continuum.
Mm. Sentient beings or unenlightened beings have different continuums because they have different confusions, they have different karmas, they have different potentials on those bases. All sentient beings, when they are in the enlightened state, they are of the same continuum because now we cannot make any distinctions with their minds, right? There is no, how can we differentiate the mind of Chenrezig and the mind of Tara? Now, how can we make a distinction between the mind of the five Tathagatas, right? So something like that. This is one thing. In the enlightened state, so now it's like, please, I don't have any textual evidence, I don't have any sources, but if somehow with this samsara and nirvana, we will use that as our model. Samsara and nirvana. This explanation given by Gamboba, in the ornament of liberation, which is, I think, 6 main outlines and beginning with Buddha nature, and then Gamboba explains all phenomena they fall in the 2 categories of samsara and nirvana, right? And what is samsara? Samsara, its nature is emptiness, right? And then its defining characteristic is that it is within a state of delusion, something like that. And then what is nirvana? Its nature is emptiness, and its defining characteristic is that it is in a state of no more delusion, right? So it begins with that, and I would like to sort of bring that into how we usually understand samsara and nirvana. I think that helps somehow to bring it together. I have a good feeling about that, but it's there is a feel-good factor there, but I cannot like say for sure. That's where I'm at, you know. It's like there's the compass is pointing in that direction, but it's not like showing that like this is really the house number, you know, 3500. It's not showing like that. It's just showing somewhere on 4th Street, but 2500 is not coming up. Something like that, right? So I would like somehow, I know that I shouldn't be biased, but I can't help it. I am biased, you know, no matter what, you know, I'm biased in one way or another. And one of these bias is that I have a wish, I have a hope, a wish for something like the movie to end this way. You know, I have this wish, right? But I haven't watched the whole film, so I cannot really pinpoint like what happens at the end of the movie. But I somehow have like this inkling that it's probably in that direction. I have like a hunch. But yeah. So with this explanation, the point that I was trying to get to is that as long as we have these dualistic thoughts, then it is possible. In this state of delusion, we have separations. We have different minds. Yeah? But when there is no more this delusion, there are no separate minds. But then your question of, well, doesn't that sound a bit like Hinduism, right? Like Vedanta. Right. So I don't accept that premise. I don't accept that there is a bigger mind, and then my mind is just like a part of that. That I'm not necessarily subscribing to that concept, right? So I think I'm good there, you know. But still, this question of, you know, during the enlightened state, is it possible to have two different continuum? Then I don't have the answer, but then on the other hand, now that I think about it, I'm only talking about Buddhahood, right? Nirvana, ultimate nirvana. And I can say anything about ultimate nirvana. I can say anything, you know, I can say anything that comes top of my head about what it is like when we are there, but then what's the point, right? We are not there. So the only way to really find out is that we have to be there. And then I think we can then really know whether all minds are one continuum or separate continuums can also exist. So this is very interesting. Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rinpoche.
Oh, so maybe our, yes, two questions, and then I think, yeah.
So if you're hypothesizing that our individual continuum is basically a continuum of impurity, and then that impurity would cease upon enlightenment, but wouldn't a Buddha's continuum be then the continuum of his merit and realization? Seemed like you were saying that the individualism would dissipate because it's actually just, the continuum is actually our impurity. It's a continuum of our ignorance. And upon the dissolution of all that, maybe we would all be at one, but wouldn't a Buddha have an accumulation of merit and realization which would continue as the continuum then?
Of course.
So that's still an individual continuum.
It remains individual as long as it's in samsara, but then when it's in the enlightened state, then it's the omniscient mind.
So all attainments that take place in this mode of existence are irrelevant once you become parinirvana or whatever.
Yes. I would say yes. Yes.
Okay.
So like all of our minds in the enlightened state, then it's all Dharmakaya, right? It's all Dharmakaya. This is very important. And then we have the 5 jhanas, we have the 5 senses, everything is there, but this is only from the viewpoint of others. I think somehow it's explained like that. I don't know if this way of explaining makes sense, but I think that if I'm not wrong entirely, then I think there is this way of explaining, right? This is why we talk of Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. That's why they are both called Rupakaya, right? Because they are now simply in a form. But Buddhahood is formless. It is Dharmakaya. But Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya, they are like emanations. They are like illusions or illusion-like. For me, this is very difficult subject. Yes, in how we always talk about the Dharmakaya, right? And with this way of explaining, then what I like about this way is that it's a little, everything's a little hazy, you know, and there's really nothing to hold on to. And I think there's really a value in that you cannot come up with a definite answer, and you cannot really close the door. You cannot close that chapter. Everything is left to experience. Thank you. Yes, everything's sort of left open. With the other explanation, then it's very da, and no one can debate that, right? But then that's also a good way. But then that doesn't mean this other way is not good either, right? So there's, I think, we have to know both these ways, and then somehow it's like going through a maze. I don't know, something like that. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, the last question.
You said that with compassion, we have no doubts because then we trust sentient beings completely. What are we trusting them with, or what are we trusting there?
I think that is irrelevant when it is unconditional, right? When compassion, when our compassion is at a level where it is absolutely unconditional, then what is it and why is it, and all of that, I think, just fades away. This is how I would like to think of it as, you know, because it's, I think, spontaneous. And when it is spontaneous, it's there, and you cannot explain or give explanations or give commentaries on that experience, right? On that moment, right? So this is really, so this, again, we're coming to that two modes of asking questions, of defining things, and then with this other spontaneous approach. Both of these two approaches exist in our systems, you know. So sometimes it's a good thing that we have two systems in case one doesn't work. Just in case, if one doesn't work, we always have the other system. It's like the backup, you know, for those who we rely on the spontaneous approach for many years, and then one day, then we start asking questions, and all these doubts start arising. Then it's almost like we are starting to ask existential questions to ourselves, right? What have I been doing all these years, right? What was that I trying to accomplish, and what was it that I was trying to do all these years, right? And so when we have like this existential breakdown, then we can always say, okay, now it's time to go to the drawing board and then learn everything, you know, in a very structured way, from, you know, to connect all those dots, you know, A, B, C, D, and everything. And then for the other person who has been doing all of these A to Z things and everything in a very structured PowerPoint presentations like that, yes, for many years, that person has been doing this, but then in the end, there's like still so many questions still, that we can never finish answering the questions. There's so much. If we try to find 10 answers, tomorrow we have 100 questions. If we try to come up with those answers to the 100 questions, day after tomorrow, they've now multiplied to 10, to 1,000, and then 10,000, and then it just goes on and on and on, right? So then again, this person also starts to have like a nervous breakdown, right? And then for this person, okay, now this is enough, this is good. Now you can maybe try this other approach, this spontaneous approach, right? So we have these two systems, and it works for both people. And this is really I think this really shows the richness of the Dharma, the richness of emptiness, the richness of compassion, right? So to learn to always to go back and forth, somehow to juggle these two approaches, you know, and then the point is not losing sight, not losing motivation, you know, and whatever we can try to do, whatever we can try to play around with, it's really, you have that freedom of experimenting. I think this is so important. You know, this I think the great teacher, the Buddha, gave us this freedom, and he was very clear on that, you know, by saying, like, you know that line, right, which His Holiness always, you know, quotes, right? So something like we should not take the words of the Buddha because he said so, but really we have to first analyze them and then take it as it fits us, or something like that, right? In a way that is applicable to us, to our present state, in a way that is relevant to us, right? At this time, right? So we have that freedom, and And it is so important that we act on that and realize that. So therefore, to always have, I think, this, to have this space, to have the space. And what better space is there than emptiness? Emptiness is this space, right? So with emptiness, then there's no way that we find ourselves in some corner. We can never, that can never happen with emptiness. So with that, thank you, and you have a good evening. Thank you. That's that's so so just, I think, in the prayer book, there's one verse just before the Thanksgiving mandala, but this is something like in the traditionally, then it is said something like this. So we will go with that. Dhargye chini sabe gyawa de la noa gala gabe da chewa wazan da wa ye dembe nyemor se ye so so ye ye so ye me do Drama Rava Ayale Je Ye De Yama De Sai Ye Ye Do me de ya wa ye do ya na ma da ye la je ya ma la sho ye de ya da la ma ya sa de ye ye da ya ye do be do na ma ye sha wa de ye 제어야 당하야 나에게 바라야도 예배야소 예야와라예 와라예 라와노 서야 담아고로라나 멘다 내야나야 매 잠배 바외 제다라 쳔바다 공도 상보 대야 대제 대다 근제 제소 나로지 대다 탐제라도 대선 예배 야와 탐제제 호와 간라 저도 아마 다제 예배 자와 되고 상보 제제라도 호와라 대마라나 메베 템바다 제완 대라 라메 제예 개와엔데야 도와 말려 신년 담배 젬베 교로 펜제디에 템바시베다 년도 논제 템베 안주에 신에 템바 이제 예배 다도 강와라 때네 조외 때니 세세
土白罗山野外当街，绿大所讲当年金宝，给接咱们呀绿宝嘛有接真宝叫的嘎瓦邦，那天宁波了在那住吧，他刚西街拍我了女儿娘，南波了这边年这样大娃。讲究生教人保洁，马也把那么解决。给我娘把没把呀，过年更多陪我了，怕嘛心间当街跌打年局，年着他们街大多多娃，讲究生把干那叔叔。得到关键莫拉人做就些，看的让为过了为，新港湾的变当的。接着生活点进家作业，下边写的八多点就给我工作养到喇嘛，这边姐姐别老龙就撒旦。做年多些抢劫过百就多就缺劫家破中国，妻子难道陪我当姐姐才买些话。听见马路上外就大大心结的说，这位昨年拉的呢要我落上，天马一天把九日节三节故事么年为，天边见老大见对面见对白，没来着不来。说也呀我也牛肉多呀多来呀嘛呀啥。也呀，这呀就这呀哇，这呀呀嘛，哎呀绿呀吧，哎呀啥。来个马来，就。